why are we seeing greater portions of our cities and towns, such as Point Road or Sunnyside in Pretoria, being taken over by Nigerians who are known drug dealers, traffickers in South Africa, and human traffickers in South Africa? The same way we kept saying that apartheid is oppression, the current system we're living in is an oppressive system. Whether people want to believe it now or later, but one day they will see exactly what we're saying now. We have a government creating a system of oppression for poor people to be more poor. When the people are saying, Mr. President, we are tired of the immigration crisis in the country, do something about it. And he continues to ignore it. Foreigners are comfortable with South Africans being on drugs, being on alcohol, going out and partying and not caring about the country. They'll tell you to your face, oh, 30% pass rates, you know. These are things they say to our faces. But all along, we thought these are people that we live in harmony with. Imagine coming to someone's house and then saying, I have a right to your food, even if your children don't eat, but we are all on the same streets, so why can't I eat? Now, when it comes to the issue of African foreigners, as they claim, South Africa has laws, just as much as Angola, as much as Zimbabwe, as much as Malawi, as much as Mozambique has laws. We don't go to Zimbabwe to break their laws and say, oh, I'm African, now you can't enforce your laws because I'm African. If one South African person has ever had that experience, please bring them to us and let us talk about it and say, well done, thank you. Now at least we know that the African dream is not a South African thing. Because it's ridiculous for people to want to make much and the enforcement of the law a racial thing. We're not going to go now and go to the airports and look for white people and say, hi, you're white, bring your documents. Hi, you're white, bring your documents. We're not going to do that. We're going to go to where we know are areas affected by the issue of illegal immigrants. And when we get to those places, whether you're pink or orange or green or purple, we're going to enforce the laws of the country. Whether you're European or African, it doesn't matter. The issue is on the breaking of the laws. It's not about which part of the continent you're from or what skin color you have. That is not what we're here for. That is not part of what we do. We are not going to be targeting white people just so that we seem like we are fighting all races. No. Where we are, where our resources are, where our resources need to be protected, we will protect those resources regardless of race if you are an undocumented, illegal foreigner in our country. Now, we have a serious issue when it comes to Home Affairs and all the corruption that goes on there. We have a serious issue. We've written to the Home Affairs, we've met with the Home Affairs Department, and we've uncovered, they will tell you, a lot of corruption that we send to Home Affairs, and they end up using that to charge whoever the person is. The Department of Home Affairs has never been hostile to us sharing information with them when it comes to corrupt officials. But it feels like because they've done it for so long, some of them are like comfortable with just being criminals. You know, it's the only way they can sustain a life that they've built. You know, someone takes like 5 of their children to like expensive schools based on the money that they envision that they will get from the corruption that they're going to do. So it's not an issue of a person not getting a salary, no. It's a person getting a salary but wanting to live way above the means of that salary. That's why money starts exciting South Africans, whether it's officials or whoever, because you have a life, but that life for you starts not getting uncomfortable because you have a vision now of you getting all kinds of corrupt money, whereas there's people who just want to survive. Where I'm going with this is that when you talk about Home Affairs and documents, we have a problem when they're documenting the wrong people, when they're selling documents, etc., etc. But we cannot understand an issue where a foreign national says they are paying for your visa or they are paying for documents to stay in the country. The mere fact that you have to go that route means you know you're committing a crime. So the official and the immigrant are both wrong. So this is a message we keep sending to everyone, not just here, but in the world. please, can we not have people forcefully trying to stay in South Africa? When your visa has expired, do the right thing and go home. Apply for your visa when you're at home. Applying for documents in South Africa to forcefully stay in South Africa, say, oh, I'm a refugee, I've been in the country for 20 years, is not an excuse for you to demand to be documented. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You can stay here for 5, 10, 15 years. At the end of the day, if you did not follow the legal ways to be in the country, and if the government says, no, we're not going to document you, going to find it fraudulently is not the right way of doing it. And it also doesn't take it away from the fact that you are also committing a crime. So we are calling on the Home Affairs Department to continue to deal with some of their officials. We've seen them making their system difficult for fraud, but the most shocking things, like, I don't know how these officials think of these criminal things that they do, because now when they realize that I can no longer be documented just by showing up at Home Affairs and saying I want a birth certificate because the system requires you to hand in certain documents, they start now taking documents of dead people and using them to be documented in the country. Why the desperation? Like, that's the part that I don't get. Why the desperation for immigrants to be in the country by all means necessary? And more often than not, it's those that are here in the country doing wrong things anyways. It's not the ones that are supposedly refugees or asylum seekers. It's mostly criminals doing their usual criminal ways of staying in the country. March, as I said, echoes the voices of South Africans. And I know that what I'm going to say is not just something that I'm saying for myself, but it's the sentiments of millions of South Africans. As South Africans, we've lost faith in our president. He has proven time and time again to be a president that makes promises but doesn't deliver on those promises. And there's so many things. I remember that at one point when he delivered a sauna, I don't know which year this was, I was so excited because he spoke about a smart city. You know, I was like, my goodness, this is the technology we're talking about. You know, we want a smart city. Until today, there hasn't even been a shovel or even a map pointing to where that smart city is going to be. And if we can go back to the many sauna addresses that we've had from the president, and come back years later to see how many have been delivered, I know many of us will be disappointed. But especially on the issue of immigration, because our president continues to pretend as if it's not happening. And he's not going to wish the issue away. He's not going to pretend like South Africans are unhappy with illegal immigrants. Whether the president likes it or not, sooner or later, whether at the sauna or when journalists decide to corner him, we need him to provide us a solution for the current immigration crisis that we have in the country. Whether it's stemming from zamazamas to the influx of people stealing medication, whether it's from the criminals that are hijacking buildings, or whether it's from the children being trafficked in and out the country, all of these things are things that he's very much aware of. But we've never heard a thing from the president. And we will continue to put pressure on not just the president, but the presidency and government to say something about it, and not only just say, but do something about it. Because pretending that the issue doesn't exist is not going to make the issue disappear. And unfortunately, when you deal with the issue that deals with people's lives in this matter, if you continue to ignore it, you make the tensions even worse. Like I said, if the government of South Africa is a government for the people, then they need to understand that when the people are saying, Mr. President, we are tired of the immigration crisis in the country, do something about it, and he continues to ignore it, he's only putting more pressure on the people who feel like their voices are not heard to want their voices to be heard by any means necessary. And by that, I need to make it clear that we are in no means promoting violence. That's not what we're saying. But we're saying that we know from the trends that people, when they are frustrated, they'll either go to the road and start burning tires, or they'll go and do something ridiculous. And that is the only way that our government responds. And we are asking for the government to find a better way of dealing with problems than to pretend they don't exist or to leave them there hanging until they reach crisis mode. We are calling the South African government to act today on the issue of illegal immigration and the influx of foreign nationals who are in the country committing crimes and taking over our lives completely, because we are no longer free. We feel like we are being oppressed by foreign nationals who are invading this country. You know, it's easier to go out there and fight a system when we are united. And currently as South Africans, we're not united. Like on social media, we can all say the same thing, right? It's easier to type something. But when it's time to show up and show that we are united as a unit, as South Africans or as KZN people, we're still lacking. Which is why, as much it's so important for us to build the thing of patriotism. That's why we're saying today we're launching the movement as a movement that encourages patriotism, which is something that is deeply, deeply lacking in the country. You know, you see someone standing and singing the national anthem of the country and they're scratching their head or doing something funny. Some people don't even know what the flag looks like. Some don't even know what our national plant is. We've got all these things, but we see that our government doesn't see it. You know, in other countries, when you go, even when they're giving you your citizenship, to say that now you're a citizen of this country, it's a big deal. Like it's an event. You go to the offices, you take a pledge. You say, I now pledge my allegiance to such and such a country. Not in South Africa. In South Africa, nobody takes the issue of being a South African seriously. It's like we live for day to day. We don't realize how wonderful our country is. We don't speak highly of it enough. We don't celebrate ourselves enough. We are too invested in these small. You know, if I was to start a gender war today and say, men are like this, men, South Africa like this, trust me, that would gain more engagements in this country than me talking about the economy of this country. Which means we've got a serious problem. If South Africans are not worried about the economy of their own country, but when you talk about a soapy or DJ Black Coffee having an event in Moses Mabhida, you'll get the remarks that you want. And nobody funds organizations like ours that want South Africans to be patriotic. Because they know that a lot of people benefit from events, a lot of people benefit from drugs, from alcohol. Alcohol get big beneficiaries. So once you start speaking something that actually directs something South Africans towards a common goal or a vision towards a future for this country, you're creating a problem. That's why we're getting so much resistance from foreigners right now, because they realize that we are ringing alarm bells in South Africans saying, hey, wake up. This is actually what's happening in your country. When all along they were saying these things in private. We are always drunk, we don't care about it. They were saying them in private, in the comforts of their circles. Now we force them to come out and say exactly what they think of us. And you can hear from their sentiments that foreigners are comfortable with South Africans being on drugs, being on alcohol, going out and partying and not caring about the country. They'll tell you to your face, 30% pass rates, you know. These are things they say to our faces. But all along, we thought these are people that we live in harmony with. You know, for the longest time, we didn't see that foreigners are so aggressive towards South Africans, that they don't like us. That's the honest truth, they don't like us. They will come to South Africa and use our resources, milk it for all that it has. Most of them will come, even get documents in this country to go to other countries. So our country becomes like a passage to a great life. You know, our country is just an economic, like, slave queen to other countries, if I can call it that. Like, please quote that, that's a nice saying. Our country is like an economic slave queen, you know, to other countries, where everyone just wants to come here because I want to survive. Ask these foreigners, as many of them as possible, what they contribute to this country. You will realize that they are not contributing to the country. They are just here to take. And if they can take from even our 10-year-olds that are in school and put their own children, they will do it without a heartbeat. And make you feel bad for fighting for your own South African children to be in school. They'll make you seem like you're the one who's crazy, because they are the ones who also have a right. Imagine coming to someone's house and then saying, I have a right to your food, even if your children don't eat, but we are all on the same streets, so why can't I eat? Yes, my kids must eat first because I'm a refugee. I'm sad. I have a sad story. I'm from a poor country. My family is poor. You guys have been rich. So if you are rich, I also have a right to eat. That's the current country that we're living in. That's the system that we've allowed ourselves, and our children will adopt that. But trust me, you see how bad it is now. 2, 3 years from now, if we don't win this fight, it'll be 10 times worse. So we don't have a choice. We have to win. That's why our motto is until we win. Because not winning is not an option, especially if you're a mother, if you're a father. Because trust me, very soon, even your jobs there, there'll be foreigners there. There by the microphone in front of the camera, writing news. Because journalists will be writing news that are more favorable to South Africans, and that's going to be wrong. Because they're going to be taking over the country, and their stories must dominate how foreigners are this and that. Trust and believe that is the direction we are headed to as a country. And your votes are very important. Because some people are out there allowing this to happen as politicians. Remember when we said that politicians are not speaking the same language as us? Look at the political parties that are speaking the language that is anti-March and March. Look at them. Look at what they stand for. Look at how they are benefiting from this. If you're looking at Mandela Commission today, you will have certain political parties that are benefiting from it. Certain political parties that are benefiting from the discourse and the problems that we have in the country. That's why it's very important that people stop being attached to political parties. If a political party is not serving the interests of South Africans, that political party must be extinct. If it means that it must never exist ever again, that is what must happen. When you look at the laws of the country, right, they are explicit in that if you are a foreigner in the country, even if you are here to lecture, you can't be lecturing English as a foreigner. You know what I mean? You come all the way from wherever to come and be a lecturer. You come and be a political analyst. Like, why do we have political analysts that are foreigners in our country? What for? What skills do they bring into the country? Do we not have our own? Because this thing people take for granted, and still until now, I see it's starting to eat into the middle class as well. So the middle class is now realizing that this thing is not immune to them. So they're starting to realize that this thing is not immune to them. You're seeing doctors on the streets take to the street marching, teachers, lecturers. Everyone is on the ground complaining that foreigners are taking over their jobs, whereas they're not providing any special skills. That's why the law was there. It was there because there's no need for us to have lecturers lecturing English, teachers coming from Zimbabwe. We've got 700 and something in KZN alone, teachers from Zimbabwe coming to teach. Why? When we've got unemployed teachers. You know, there's something that we mentioned also in our presentation, which is called a fair discrimination. And something we want to emphasize in the Labor Relations Act, that there is something called fair discrimination. Because I can discriminate against Upriti if she's a foreign national for the sake of a South African. That makes sense. It's not rocket science. And there's articles, there's judgments on this, where there's a lot of fair discrimination cases that have been won because it doesn't make sense. We went to speak to Minister Aaron Mutharedi, who said to us that they have now started well, it's actually in effect, because I saw in one of the universities refusing foreign nationals to study medicine. Like, completely. Like, if you're a foreigner, you're not allowed to study medicine. It's currently in the country. Because he said, while he was at Home Affairs, they'd get a lot of court cases, taking them to court from foreigners saying, you taught me, now you must hire me. Because, I mean, it makes sense. Why would I teach you and then say, when, like teaching foreigners law, for example, you come and you learn law to what? Obviously, because you must practice. And you're going to practice which law? South African law. So these things start from primary school, where you're teaching them. You take them, when they finish there at Ellington, where must they go? They must go to a high school, right? We don't have the same problem. Now we must go to a high school and remove them so that we can put a South African child. It's a never-ending story. When they finish high school, where must they go? They must go to university. Now we must go to university and fight them to remove them to put South African children. So a lot of people think they're not affected now because maybe their children are still in primary school. Oh, primary school, it's only primary. Why are you harassing poor primary school children? But it starts there. Everything, if you want to solve it, you start at the grassroots. We're not going to go there to universities because probably by then the government has given them documents or they've found their way through Home Affairs and they've gotten their documents. But there, at foundation phase, that is where our government should be saying no. No to foreign children. Because if you're saying they deserve a right to an education, you as the government must build them refugee camps there and educate them there. Not at the expense of South African children, never. Children must be going to, while their children are in school, learning. From their high school, from high school, university, it's a cycle, this thing. They've penetrated everything, these foreign nationals. SANDF, CFO, the person who's in charge of the finances of our entire military is a foreigner. We have soldiers being told that you can't be harsh to illegal immigrants. I received messages from members at the border saying we can't touch them. You can only just look at, you're a soldier. They swear at you, they throw stones at you, but you can't touch them. Why? Because we've got people who are foreigners who've infiltrated our military. Their soldiers don't eat. Where do the finances come from? From a person from Ghana. Why do we think that a person from Ghana is going to prioritize South Africa? We've got this Human Rights Commission, their head of research, the person who decides that let's take March and March to court, is a person from Uganda. That person decides, oh, according to my research, March and March is the problem, let me take them to court. That person. Mind you, the Human Rights Commission is funded by us through our tax money. But the decisions are made by someone from Uganda. Have we ever heard anything being said by the Human Rights Commission about Zamazamas? No. Have they taken anyone to court for Zamazamas? No. Have they taken anyone to court for the 4,000 South African children who until today in Gauteng are not placed? No. But trust me, when it comes to March and March, going to hospitals, you will see them. Firsthand, they'll pay the best legal teams. And that person, by the way, from Uganda, his father and grandfather were leaders in Uganda. They were decision makers in human rights, but Uganda still has the worst human rights crisis in the country today. But he's not in Uganda helping those Ugandans have their human rights, but he's here in South Africa telling us about our human rights. That is how much we've allowed this to happen. We've allowed it to go on for too long. And we must question everything. Whether they call you xenophobic or whatever, we don't listen to that anymore. We need to take this country back from all these foreigners. Even in high-place building, I saw someone complaining that in Tshwane, I don't know who and who is head of this, in Zimbabwe, in Johannesburg, their head of this is someone who's from Zimbabwe. We saw a judge who wants to head the labor courts, being someone from Zimbabwe. How does this happen? How do we allow this? And it seems like we're raising petty issues to some people, but not when there's an influx of foreign nationals. If it was normal every day, like one Zimbabwean here, one Ugandan there, It's not that in this country. In this country, we are being completely taken over. There is an invasion. I heard that even some of your media houses now are being run by foreigners. Yeah, you see. But you sit here, and some of you, when you act like you are not hearing us. Unfortunately, we know it's your job, but one way or another, you have to stop writing articles that are anti-South African. You have to. Now it's no longer about us as much it's about you as well and the future of your children in your country. If your editor says don't cover a story that's showcasing the reality of what South Africans are happening, then don't cover that story. In one of those radio stations, they said they mustn't cover a story that has much and much. We are fine with that. But they wanted to go and cover a story that has to do with the Department of Education, but not cover much and much. How is that balanced reporting? There's no balance there. But we are fine because you guys are here, they can stay, it doesn't matter. So we are calling on, like I can't emphasize enough how every single South African job and South African identity is being stolen right now. We don't have a problem with foreign nationals. We emphasize this again. But as long as they're here doing good things, and they are here, there's no, like we said, there's too many laws being broken to accommodate foreign nationals. You can't be telling us that you've got FET colleges where there's foreigners, and then when we talk about it, you say it's because we hate foreign nationals. No, we are saying that the law doesn't allow it. Whether they are here legally or whatever, at the end of the day, the law does not allow for a foreign national to come and sweep the floor. That's just the law. It's not us. So people must stop making this about us having vendettas or hating people. No. The law is the law. Next thing, foreigners are going to be voting, like you said. Because the Refugees Act says they are allowed to do all the things that we are allowed to as citizens. But then we also say that foreigners are not allowed to. You see the contradiction there. In our very own laws, the Refugee Act says they're allowed to do everything we're allowed to do. But then the law says only South Africans are allowed to vote. Then the Constitution, then you don't know which is which. If you are making reference to say that they have all the rights that are written on the Constitution, on section what, but in that very same Constitution it says that foreigners are not allowed, then what are we doing as a country? Why are our politicians not bringing these things up? What are they doing like in Parliament? What are they doing in Parliament if they're not raising these issues? Then we've got laws that are contradicting each other. If they're not raising that South Africans are tired of illegal immigrants, what are they doing in Parliament? Of course, we've seen some political parties doing an exceptional job at raising the issues that South Africans are concerned about. And that's why we as much continue to engage such political parties and such departments as well. We're also currently speaking to the Premier's office. We're working with them. We've even asked them, because they've got an operation, it's a program called Engangeni Ngomnyama Yafo. We have asked them as the Premier's office, please can we be part of that movement? We don't mind. We will go all out, and we are really grateful because the Premier's office has listened to us, and we are working on being part of such programs where we can be hands-on and can be seen to be making sure that our laws are implemented. We will always caution our members against political parties that are not in the interest of what we stand for. Because you can't be march and then also be preaching that people must find creative ways to come into the country, for example. I'm just making an example. So that doesn't make, it's a contrast, you know? And we're not saying that those political parties must stop preaching whatever message that they're preaching, no. We're just saying that's not who we are, and that's not what we stand for. We stand for South Africans through and through, from beginning to end. If we need to discriminate against people fairly, for South Africans to be put first, that must be done. And if it means that we must change the Constitution, that must be done. Because currently, we are dealing with a crisis we didn't know many years ago, 30-something years ago, when they even wrote that Constitution. They probably didn't know that we'd be dealing with an invasion now, you know, disguised as legal. So it's very important that is done. And then you mentioned something about political parties infiltrating us. I think for example, when we have a march, we make it explicitly clear that the march is for March and March, please don't wear political regalia. But you know people will always take chances. But we go out of our way to emphasize this. Like, even before the march starts, I know there was even a case where Nozi was furious this one time because some members, like, they're saying, I don't have any other thing to wear. They're like, okay, switch your t-shirt around, wear it inside out. As long as you understand what we're saying, we're not trying to be labeled as any political party. But there will be instances, for example, where March and March will go and support Action SA, for example. And Action SA will come and support March and March. But it's not a program of March and March. Or even if it is a program, but it's not limiting to you being there as a political person, wearing a t-shirt, say Action SA or MK or ANC or if whatever, you know what I mean? You are allowed to just come there and probably picket. We do that a lot with pickets because pickets is difficult to say don't wear, well, because it's just a picket, you know. But with our marches, we are stringent and we are clear that it's only March and March here or your own attire that you must wear. We do, like I said, work very well with certain political parties, and we're not going to disassociate ourselves with those political parties. In fact, when it comes to votes and elections, if it means we can promote those different political parties, we will, you know, we will. Because, for example, in some political parties make it explicitly clear in their manifesto that they are anti-illegal immigrants. And if we can highlight and shine the light on the fact that the IFP, for example, has a manifesto that is explicit, that says that they are anti-illegal immigration, we will support that, unapologetically so. We will support them. Whether people say it's because it's taking away IFP or whether they're giving us money, we don't care. In fact, if the IFP can give us money, we'd appreciate it. We really would.